Glad to see everybody. Thank Micah for the prayer, Casey for the reading. And we're going to finish our second part, Lord willing. Last week we looked at the words Tartarus and Hades or Hades, what their meanings were, the definitions, and hopefully gave us a little more clear idea of the scriptures where those were used. This week we're going to look at the third word that is translated into our English word hell, and this is from Gehenna. I meant to write it over there so you can see. This comes, and the Greek word will say Gehenna, G-E, with a hyphen, and then H-E-N-N-A, Gehenna. As we know about contractions, this comes from the original word of Gehenom. And we're going to look how this came into being, what it means, and the idea that it represents. So, originally, like I say, the Gehenom, means the Valley of Jerusalem, and as a name for the place or the state of everlasting punishment. Now, depending on which source you're using for your definitions, you will get that it is a location outside of Jerusalem, and it will give you this definition. And basically, we would know it today as the landfill. It's where all the trash, the dead animals, the bodies of criminals were disposed of, things were burnt. And while that definition is true, it is not an accurate picture of what the Jews' idea of it at that time of Christ, and when Christ used the word 11 of the 12 times, what that idea means. So, we define the word Gehenna, where it came from and what it came to mean to the Jews, and the reason for the location. You can see I've got some of our Old Testament references. The first three, it's a geographical location. In those three instances, it's defined and used as a border between some of the land that was divided between the tribes. So, for the sake of time, we're going to skip through some of those, but Joshua 15 and 8 is used as a border, a land boundary. Also in Joshua 18 and 16, and then also in Nehemiah 11 and 30. It's referred to as a geographical location, a boundary of the division of land. So Hinnom, and the word Hinnom, that means lamentation, to lament, right? Now, it came to mean the valley of the sun or the children of Hinnom, and it referenced the deep and narrow ravine with steep rocky sides, and this is, as the geographic location, south and west of Jerusalem. Now, that the valley of Hinnom came to be the designation for the place of final punishment was due to two causes. Okay? Two causes. Now, in the first place, it had been the seat of the idolatrous worship of Molech, to whom the children were sacrificed by fire. It was the place where the Jews, when they turned to idols and pagan worship, burned their children alive to Moloch and Baal. And the particular part where that took place came to be known as Tophet, or the fire stove. We will touch on that later. Now, And I think I put this where y'all can kind of follow along. And on the southern brow, overlooking the valley at its eastern extremity, Solomon, and we've all heard references to King Solomon, right? One of the wisest kings ever. Brother Casey had a lesson here recently about wisdom, and Solomon prayed, of all the things he could pray for to God, he just prayed for wisdom. But did he always follow that wisdom? So we're going to look, your first one, turn over to Leviticus. That'll be over to the left, right after Genesis. And I would say if you turn and follow along, it will be a little more eye-opening when we leave here. Leviticus 20. And we will do verses 1 through 5. Leviticus 21 through 5. And this was on the nation of Israel's exile out of Egypt, going into the wilderness. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Again, thou shalt say to the children of Israel, Whosoever he be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn in Israel, that giveth any of his seed unto Molech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones, and I will set my face against that man, and will cut him off from among his people, because he hath given of his seed unto Molech, to defile my sanctuary, and to profane my holy name. And if the people of the land do any ways hide their eyes from the man when he giveth of his seed unto Molech, and kill him not, then I will set my face against that man and against his family, and will cut him off, and all that go a-whoring after him to commit whoredom with Molech from among their people. This was written as they were leaving Egypt, going into the wilderness. Like I say, you can debate plus or minus a few years, but roughly around 1440 BC. This was already known and in practice, and God warned them, do not associate with this. So this was the pagan nations. This was a practice. If you turn over to the right to the book of Deuteronomy, go right on past Numbers to the book of Deuteronomy, to 7, verses 1 through 6. Now this was written as the Israelites were coming out of the wilderness. Remember, they had been in the wilderness for about 40 years. They had been warned going into the wilderness, do not do this, do not associate with this people. God told them he would give them this land, but there were stipulations. And when he gave them this land, they were to basically render God's judgment upon these people. So when you turn to Deuteronomy 7, verses 1 through 6, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. We can also read into that, what are we known as Christians now? We're a peculiar people, right? Holy, God's chosen people. Just like Israel's given warnings not to go and assimilate with these things, we're not to go and assimilate with the same things that take place today. We're to keep ourselves apart. And he gave them these warnings for a purpose. Now, if you turn on over to the right to 1 Kings, that's right on over past 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, and go to chapter 11. Why did God give them these warnings? Why did God tell them how they were supposed to conduct themselves? Now, if we look here in 1 Kings chapter 11, and after the warnings we just read, right, Leviticus and Deuteronomy, we know from a recent lesson of Casey's, King Solomon prayed for wisdom to instruct and guide Israel. Did he always do that? Let's begin reading in verse 1. I think we'll read verse 1 through 8. But King Solomon loved many strange women together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. They had been given directives. Even King Solomon fell to this in all of his wisdom. See, people remember Solomon and all of these things, and we hear little scriptures here and there about him, and they just think, oh, Solomon never messed up. They turned as far from God as they could turn. That's where this idea of what hell, the eternal punishment, the idea comes from, and this is how it got to this meaning. Let's look at verses 9 through 13. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, For as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and I will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. Howbeit I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. God was pronouncing what he was going to do to them for what they were doing. Now, this was written referencing during Solomon's reign. Like I say, I think I wrote some dates over there. Leviticus was the beginning of going into the wilderness. Deuteronomy was going from the wilderness into the promised land. This is roughly 500 years later, during the reign of King Solomon. They had turned and were burning their children alive in sacrifice to pagan idols. If we turn to 2 Kings, just turn to the right. Go to 2 Kings 16, and we will read verses 1 through 4. Second Kings 16, 1 through 4. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord his God, like David his father. But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. That were those of the north that had turned also to pagan worship, pagan idols, and made his son to pass through the fire. That was a human sacrifice, burnt alive to a pagan god. According to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel. And he sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. The very thing they were warned not to assimilate with, not to do, not to associate with. If you turn over to 2 Chronicles, turn over to 2 Chronicles to the right. Go through 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 28. And this was not just once in a while. See, a lot of people think the Jews, when they got to the promised land, they followed the law of Moses until the time of Jesus. Absolutely not. 2 Chronicles 28 and 3. And this records Ahaz. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, but he did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord like David his father, for he walked in the ways of the king of Israel and made also molten images for Balaam. Well, they didn't record that over in Kings, did they? Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children in the fire after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. He sacrificed also and burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. They were no different than the people that they were sent there to remove. No different. Turn over a few pages to 33, chapter 33. And we'll read verses 1 through 6 here. And this is Manasseh. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem, but did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, like unto the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. For he built again, they had been torn down, for he built again the high places which Hezekiah his father had broken down. Hezekiah tried to restore order and worship to God. But here, the first generation from Hezekiah, Manasseh. And he reared up altars for Balaam and made groves. Now groves, we would think of them today as like you would see in Alaska as a totem pole. They made these, they were an idol, and they placed them around and next to altars. When it says groves, that's what it's referring to. And worshipped all the host of heaven and served them. Also, he built altars in the house of the Lord, whereof the Lord had said, In Jerusalem shall my name be forever. And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of the Lord. That's not talking about the host of heaven as in God and angels. It's talking about every idol that men had conjured up. And he caused his children to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Also he observed times and used enchantments and used witchcraft and dealt with a familiar spirit and with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. And you can keep reading. They had got so far over to being a pagan. And you think originally, well, this took 500 years. Well, right here, Manasseh, it took the first generation. Hezekiah destroyed a lot of these things, and he comes back and rebuilds them and adds more to it. Now, where the actual sacrifice of the babies took place, like I say, it was referenced as Tophet, or the fire stove, or where the actual act took place. This is referenced in Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 31. And Jeremiah records, And they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my heart. That was God's words to him, to tell the children of Israel. He couldn't even, God never even, this was never. That's why he had told them to pronounce judgment upon these people when he brought them to this promised land. He told them to destroy them. Do not assimilate with them. Now the word Topheth or Topher, that word comes from the definition basically of a drum. Okay? Drum or a timbre or tabor. What they would do during these rituals is they would use drums to drown out the cries of the infants while they were being sacrificed. That's how the word Tophet or Topher came into being. Now, like I say, we read about Ahaz and Manasseh. Basically, they just turned this over to the pagan priest to do their sacrifices however they saw fit. God's laws and his authority were not relevant anymore. Now in Jeremiah, in chapter 19, you can turn over to the right past Isaiah. I think I've got another reading in 2 Kings, but Jeremiah 19, verses 2 through 6. And God sent Jeremiah to Israel, the tribe of Judah and Benjamin, which were left there around Jerusalem. He sent Jeremiah to them proclaiming, because this was going on at this time, even though Judah and Benjamin were still around Jerusalem. God sent Jeremiah there proclaiming to them as a prophet. And in chapter 19, verses 2 through 6, And go forth unto the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is by the entry of the east gate, and proclaim there the words that I shall tell thee, and say, Hear ye the word of the Lord, O kings of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will bring evil upon this place, the which whosoever heareth his ears shall tingle, because they have forsaken me and have estranged this place and have burned incense in it unto other gods, whom neither they nor their fathers have known, nor the kings of Judah, and have filled this place with the blood of innocents. They have built also the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither came it into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that this place shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. Now, writers believe that this part of Jeremiah was written around 605 BC. God sent Jeremiah telling them, I am going to judge you for all of this evil you have done. That's the first idea of what Gehenna means. All of this atrocities, the only thing that we can imagine close to it was the Holocaust that took place during World War II. That is the only thing in our lifetime that we can even imagine that would come close to what they were doing. Secondly, was what took place to this as a result of God pronouncing judgment upon them. Let's turn back over to 2 Kings. Back over to the left, just a little ways. 2 Kings 23. This was King Josiah. This was God's reckoning upon Israel. This is about the 600 BC era. This was after Jeremiah had given the prophecy that God had told him to tell him what was going to happen. Remember, he told them this was going to be known as the Valley of Slaughter. After that, here's where Josiah. Now, Josiah came into being because he found basically the book of the law, and they began studying where they were versus where they were supposed to be. So here in 23, we'll start, I don't know what I've got over there, 1 through 8 or something. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great, everyone, all the people, small and great, kids and adults. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in the house of the Lord. That was known as the book of law, what Moses had recorded and written. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord to walk after the Lord, to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their hearts and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. And the king commanded Hilkiah, the high priest, and the priest of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal and for the grove. Remember, those were like, we would think of them as a totem pole. Idols, carved images. And for all the host of heaven, that's all the other idols. And he burned them outside or without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And he put down the idolatrous priest. You know what it meant when he said he put down. He put down the idolatrous priest whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the host of heaven. And he brought out the grove from the house of the Lord without Jerusalem unto the brook of Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. And in verse 8, and he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priest had burned incense, from Geba to Beersheba, and brake down the high places of the gates that were in entering in of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand at the gate of the city. And there in verse 10, and he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. We read verse 12 through 16. And the altars that were on the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of the Lord, did the king beat down, and break them down from thence, and cast the dust of them into the brook of Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon the king of Israel had built it for Ashtoreth, the abomination of the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile. And he brake in pieces the images, and cut down the groves, and filled their place with the bones of men. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, both that altar and the high place he brake down, and burned the high place, and stamped it small to powder, and burned the grove. And as Josiah himself turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were there in the mount, and sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres, and burned them upon the altar, and polluted it, according to the word of the Lord, which the man of God proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. Then verse 19 and 20. And all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel had made to provoke the Lord to anger, Josiah took away and did to them according to all the acts that he had done in Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burned men's bones upon them, and returned to Jerusalem. God had sent Jeremiah to warn them, right? Then he pronounced judgment. Then Josiah followed through with that judgment. And on account of the idolatrous practice of the sacrifice of innocents, children, the moral decay that had happened to Israel, that they got to this point, right? You can't imagine a person thinking that this is normal, the rational person. And then, when it was, judgment was rendered on it, and as it says, was defiled, Josiah slew all the priests. He burned them on their very own altars, and put an end to that practice at that point. So it gives you the idea of all of this moral decay, and then the defilement of what took place to put an end to it. And the Jewish concept is, it's horrible, right? It's horrible. It came to be despised by priest and prophet. It was defiled by Josiah. And after this, the Jewish idea of Gehenna, taking the idea of the future, not just location, but the future punishment for the wicked, took the idea of all of that and combined it. Okay? Kind of like when Isaiah was sent prophesying to them. And Isaiah 66:24 said, "And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh." That's the idea that it came to represent to the Jews. It'll be perpetual, which eternity is. There's no end. It'll be like an eternal fire. And it says, "For their worm shall die not." That means eternal. It's everlasting. So, like I say, the Jews associated this with the two ideas, that the suffering of the victims, and then the filth and the stench that came to be associated with it, because after Josiah came the Babylonian captivity. Now, the Babylonian captivity, when they came back, this began to be used during that time as we would know it, a landfill. That's where all of the refuse and everything took place, and they burnt fires to try to keep up. And that's where the idea, when you go look at some definitions, a valley outside of Jerusalem where there are fires and carcasses. Well, that's not a wrong statement, but it certainly doesn't give the complete picture of what the Jews' idea at that time of it was. So the Jews contracted during this time period the word Gehennom, G-E-H, then the hyphen, then H-I-N-N-O-M. They contracted it, and it became Gehenna, G-E-H-E-N-N-A. It still means the same thing. Now, the significance of this is at that time, when they used that word, it had a meaning. Okay? I'll say a lot of us older people, when you used to hear the word Waterloo, what came to mind? Bonaparte's defeat, right? Not saying nothing, but some of the younger ones are looking at me like, All right, what about when you hear the word Gettysburg? Bad. What about Little Bighorn? If you studied history of out west. I'm sure everybody, when you say you're going to put somebody in here and it's going to be like Alcatraz, it means you're not going to be able to get out unless they want you to get out, right? These words have a meaning, a reference, an idea. That's what all of this other combined into this term Gehenna at that time. And at the time of Jesus, when this word was used, that's what it meant. There is no other sense that this word was used that it meant anything else. It did not mean, let's go to the dump. Okay? Now, this word is used 12 times in the New Testament. And I've got them written over there on the right-hand side. You can go through them at your leisure. For the sake of time, we'll try to move along a little bit. The 12 times that the idea of this word is used, Jesus used it 11. And he was always warning people. Your actions, your attitudes, the way you regard God and your relationship to him. He was always warning them of what that end result could be. Like I say, I didn't get them kind of written down in order from beginning to end, so you can go through them a little easier. But, as in our reading, Matthew 10:28, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Okay, he was giving them the idea. Some people would take this verse and they want to teach annihilation, meaning that your soul ends, it ceases. That is not what the scripture is teaching. Jesus himself used the word. What it means is not the loss of being, but the loss of well-being. Do you understand the difference? It is not the loss of your soul being in existence. It is the loss of where your soul is in existence. Somebody confined in jail, solitary confinement, you'll hear different, a 6x8, a 8x10, whatever the size. To someone outside that's never been locked up, that would be like not having a life, right? But that person that is in there is still alive. But his well-being is not the same as that person that's out here driving up and down the road. So Jesus used this as a repeated warning. Many of these, and he'll say it's if the right eye offend thee, or if the right hand offend thee, or he's not telling you literally, lose an eye, lose a hand. He's telling you, you must be willing to give up something that is near and dear. You may need to be willing to give up something that you think you can't do without. Just like Solomon, who was still regarded as one of the wisest kings ever, he left from doing what he started out originally to putting pagan idols, pagan worship, human sacrifice. And he ruled for 40 years. That is how quick someone's heart can turn away and the moral decay can come in. The one time that it was not used by Jesus, James used it in 3 and 6. And James wrote, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity, so the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. Now here it's kind of describing the source of the evil done by the misuse of the tongue. Here the word stands for the characteristics of misuse. We all know what the tongue can do, right? You can build someone up or tear someone down. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's unintentional. But when it is intentional, it can be very devastating. And James regarded it in the same manner that Jesus did. Guard your tongue. So as we close out, we want to remember the Jews regarded hell, from the word Gehenna, as a future place of punishment. And it's not going to be the loss of being, but the loss of well-being at that time. Remember the story of Lazarus and the rich man? Lazarus was a beggar. The rich man, it says, being in torment, lifted up his eyes. He had lost his well-being. Lazarus had gained his. That's what we want to keep in mind. We can't change our outcome after we meet that point. James says, it's appointed unto man once to die, and after that, the judgment. So we keep this in mind, just as God warned Israel, stay away from these things. We have admonishments now, stay away from these things. And it's for the purpose of trying to keep our morals secure. Because our body can heal from things, but our morals and the damage we do to ourselves, sometimes we mentally don't recover from those things. And there's a reason. We're to guard our heart, guard our souls. Try to help others to understand. So hopefully this study on these three words will make some of these scriptures clear. Hopefully it'll help somebody maybe have a study with someone, explain some of these. Maybe we have a little more knowledge than we had before we started. And if there's those that haven't taken opportunity to become a part of the church, it says you're to hear, believe, repent, confess, and be buried for the remission of your sins, and the Lord adds to the church. And if there's those that have taken those steps that maybe we have, like Solomon, maybe we've strayed off, not to the extent he did, but maybe morally, maybe we've come to think some things are okay, or we've done something that we think brings dishonor upon our walk with Christ. It says, the effectual and fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. You can come forward and make your needs known from prayers from the church as we stand and sing this song of invitation.